Hi everyone, Teddy Baldassarre with TeddyBaldassarre.com. In this video, we're looking at a watch from Tissot with the Tissot Ballade. So in this video and on this channel, we cover watches available for purchase on our website, TeddyBaldassarre.com. So in this video, deep dive review of this timepiece. Also at the end, final points of consideration. In addition to that though, if you have any further questions, check out the link in the description to the product page where you can learn more, purchase the watch, and book a time with one of our dedicated watch specialists as well. But guys, let's jump into the video, take a closer look at this watch. Now, Tissot's position in the watch industry as being a provider of value for money timepieces cannot be overstated. And I've covered them in great detail, pretty much covering almost every model from their entire collection. And it's hard to find a bad watch that Tissot makes in many ways. They really do have a good pulse on what the consumer wants, while also offering up something with mass market appeal and being one of the larger Swiss brands in the entire industry. But even for Tissot, like many brands, there are different tiers of watches that they almost ascend in terms of quality with their movements as well as finish. And one of the watches that have been part of the higher echelon of timepieces from the brand is the Ballade. This watch has recently undergone some changes in its design, which some people might like, some people might not like, but let's take a closer look. This is a COSC certified watch from Tissot, priced a little bit higher, and from a finishing standpoint, you certainly can tell you are getting some upped attention to detail in the process. So quickly discussing this watch compared to the previous version from the design perspective before we get into the wearing dimensions. The change here that you're going to immediately find is going to be with that bezel. The previous version had this knurling type effect. This particular version is going to have, of course, a fluted design that is going to certainly bring some conversation around the Datejust by default, but it does look pretty attractive when you can get beyond just the kind of connection to that of Rolex. And when you consider where this one falls in price as well as the value that's usually associated with this line and family, there's certainly some play here with this model. Now, let's look into the actual wearing dimensions of this one because they are a little bit unconventional. So you have 41 millimeters with the diameter with a 46.8 millimeter lug-to-lug distance and a thickness at just under 10 millimeters at 9.6 millimeters. So with all that factored in mind, this watch is going to wear closer to that of a 39 millimeter case. Also with the fact of that larger bezel along the outside, which is a little bit different compared to most dress watches. Most of them are going to have slim profiles when it comes to bezels. This is going to make the dial appear a bit smaller, so it's going to work in its favor from a wearability perspective. Also, the lug-to-lug dimension is certainly going to allow a lot of people to pull this one off. Not going to have to worry about overhang or anything of the sort, while also getting a thin case, which is going to be able to fall underneath dress cuffs with great ease. In terms of finishing on this watch, the number one thing that's going to pop out is the polish elements of that fluted bezel. On other elements of the frontward-facing case, you also have polished parts of the lugs, and then when transitioning to the case flanks, it's going to have vertical brushing. The bracelet here also kind of follows some Rolex fashion with a Jubilee type multi-link effect. And what it's going for, polished links towards the center with that one central pointed link following the vertical brushing of the side of the case. It meets at a 2-button release clasp at the underside that has a hidden type of effect to it, with getting the Tissot sign logo on the front. The bracelet is pin adjusted, so no screwed in links here, but overall I find it's actually better than most of the bracelets that Tissot is rolling out. In terms of the best of the best, I would say the PRX. This one's kind of falling between this and say like the Gentleman Powermatic 80 in terms of what it's delivering. It doesn't have the stiffness of that Powermatic 80 Gentleman piece, so some decent fluidity here with those links. Seated inside the fluted bezel is a scratch-resistant sapphire crystal, which provides a clear view of the elegant black dial below. So along the edge is the minute track with white printing that sits just outside the step dial ring. This ring has a polished steel trim to both the external and internal edges, separating it from the rest of the dial. It's along this matte black section of the dial where we find the polished bevel steel indices for the hour markers, except for the 12 and the 6, we find applied polished Roman numerals. Moving further inward, the center section of the dial has a guilloche style effect, which also casts a radial sunburst style as it plays with the light. This is also the section of the dial where we're going to find the Tissot logo just underneath that 12 o'clock Roman numeral, and the text referencing the model name and the movement COSC chronometer status just above the Roman numeral 6, all of which is printed in contrasted white lettering. At the 3 o'clock dial position, we do have a broadened date window with a steel outline which reveals the white date disc below. And finally, at the center, we have some very conventional, traditional Dauphine style hands to display the time. Absent from this watch is the use of superluminova or any luminescent material, which means you'll have to rely on your phone to check the time in the dark. However, while you can't read the Ballade in the dark, under normal lighting, you should have no problem in reading the bright silver hands and dial markers against the black dial, as the contrast and legibility is pretty solid. This design in its totality is rather traditional and straightforward, while pulling some elements from Rolex without question. It's almost a combination of the Rolex Cellini and the Datejust put together in a $1,000 watch package. So flipping this watch over, we have the visual access to the automatic Powermatic 80 movement inside by way of the sapphire exhibition glass. And here we see one of the higher end movement variants from Tissot with the Powermatic 8811, featuring some nice upgrades with the silicium hairspring as indicated by that SI emblem designation next to the balance wheel, as well as being a COS certified movement as well. In terms of finishing, pretty utilitarian in its approach. It does have some wave design patterns found across a few of the bridges and visible plates, as well as on the oscillating rotor. The Powermatic 80 is based upon the ETA 2824 and then is reworked to extend that power reserve to 80 hours. How they're doing this is dropping the beat rate from 28,800 vibrations per hour to 21,600 vibrations per hour to allow that maximize mainspring. Additionally, the regulating system from the ETA 284 has been swapped out for a free-sprung balance, which helps eliminate particular sources of error in occurrence with shock and things of that sort. So regulation is not going to be as straightforward here. In terms of accuracy, though, you are going to get a COSC compliant movement. So this is going to operate with the range of deviation provided from -4 to +6 from COSC. But in our tests, of course, these are going to go ahead and outperform that based on the fine-tuned regulation that's going to be happening. So just as a recap, we're looking at 21,600 vibrations per hour, 3 Hertz in terms of the operation. This watch also features hacking and hand winding. Hacking stop in the second hand when you pull out the crown to the farthest position. And again, a power reserve of 80 hours. All right, so now to look at this Tissot Ballade and where it's kind of positioned within Tissot's collection. So this is one of the, I would say, higher end models from Tissot in their dress watch category. It comes with some of the components and features that are commonly associated with this range. You're getting that SI hairspring. In addition, you're also getting a COSC certified movement on the inside, which should offer some nice peace of mind in the world of accuracy. 50 meters of water resistance might leave a little bit to be desired, but still should have you covered given the instance in which I would imagine most people applying this watch from a day-to-day as a dress-oriented piece. Wearability is quite good as well when you're talking about something that wears a bit more compact compared to what the case dimensions might set off. It does have some presence with that fluted bezel, so that's going to add a little bit of just kind of flair to it, although making the dial appear a little bit smaller in the process. At the end of the day, I don't know how this one's going to maybe compare to the previous iteration in terms of what people like. I might actually see probably more people gravitating towards this. Instead of being a run-of-the-mill dress watch, this one's going to have components that are going to be associated with Rolex, and anything that can be associated with Rolex at a lesser price degree while still maintaining its own type of design style is usually going to be a winning package for many people looking in the direction. You're also getting a Jubilee-esque style bracelet as well, which does a pretty good job, not quite on the level of something like the Tissot PRX, but still a good bracelet compared to some other offerings from Tissot. So at the end of the day, you can't question what's going on and what's delivered from a value perspective for this watch. COSC movement, 80-hour power reserve, also getting that SI hairspring, so that checks off the boxes, getting a nice sapphire crystal, decent water resistance, nice wearability. Just how much do you like this design style compared to the previous? Do you see this as a Datejust alternative? Because I think that's naturally where a lot of people are going to go with looking at this new variation of this model. And with that approach is going to come some conflict of where you are on what side of the aisle. Are you somebody that's looking for something of this sort and just want to get into this realm? Or are you somebody that just detests anything that pulls design from anywhere else? If that's a position you take, you're going to have a really rough time in the watch industry because that happens pretty much all the time. But this one is probably a bit more on the nose than some others. But a dress watch with some undertones of Rolex and a Tissot package that is always about the value. All right, guys, well, thank you again so much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Really would appreciate that, as well as it does help out the channel. Also, if you're in the market for this watch, it is available on TeddyBaldassarre.com. We're a full authorized dealer of over 30 brands, quick and fast fulfillment, dedicated customer support, also offer a full factory warranty for all the products that we carry, unlike a lot of places online. So if something goes wrong, you don't have to pay the bill for it. We also offer price match. So if you see one of our watches for cheaper at another authorized dealer, just fill out the form. We'll be in contact with you. And again, 9 out of every $10 that we generate goes right back into the content that we're creating here, as well as on our main channel, of course. But guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.